I found my light. With Jesus by my side, I conquer every fight. Walking in faith, I won't be afraid. His love surrounds me, my fears will fade. Hope is my anchor, love is my guide. With Jesus I'll overcome, I'll never hide. A warrior of strength, in His name I rise. In a world of chaos, His love never dies.
She's an award-winning author, speaker, owner of GodlyGranny.com, and podcast host, sharing the truth with you. This is The Michelle Moore Show.
Hi, everyone. So glad that you're here with us. That is such a catchy little song. I love it. Hope you had a great weekend. It's Monday. Steve Jarvis is with us. He's an ex-Maha member. And of course, fifth generation farmer. His wife is a fifth generation dairy farmer. So they might know a little bit about agriculture. And so we've got Steve with us today. Very excited. I got a few things for you at the end of today's show I want to talk with you about. But before that, let's talk with Steve. Let's go ahead and bring him in and get started. We got a lot to cover today. And you know it'll be entertaining because Steve's here. Hi, Steve.
Thanks for having me on. And my understanding is Michelle's going to have me on every Monday for the next couple of weeks. So guess what? We're going to buckle up, and it's not going to be a blue Monday. It's going to be really, 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 really interesting. We're going to talk about all the junk going on in America and give you solutions for that.
All right. So first thing is there's a little bit of a controversy going on with you and Instagram. And what's going on with your latest video?
Well, my latest video is, listen, Moms Across America and everybody's up there at the Supreme Court today because Monsanto's going to be the argument, the pesticide immunity, was Roundup bad and all that stuff and all that big fight. Listen, when I went to Washington, D.C. last year, I told Bobby Kennedy when he came to my farm, I presented a plan to create 1 million new 40-acre farms. And I said, you're going the wrong way. And I told them, they said I need to quit talking so negative about it. And, and I even had the Christian ladies, busting me on Instagram saying, I stand and I speak, the truth and what you say matters. Yeah, what I said matters because what I said in Maha was if you create 1 million new 40-acre farms that don't use this junk, get behind this program. You know what happened? Nothing. Not one of them. You know what happened? 17,000 farms were lost. That's what really happened. And they didn't create any new farms that did it. So I'm in this little spit for spat thing with Maha and Moms Across America, which I'm not a part of Maha. Some divorces in life are really, really beneficial. And I got a divorce from Maha. December the 16th is the best thing I ever did in my life because Bobby Kennedy is the thing about it is controlled opposition is the worst thing for our side. Controlled opposition is they say all the right things and nothing ever gets done. And that is what is happening with Maha. Maha died, and they're still trying to fight this battle before the Supreme Court today. And listen, Moms Across America, I love you. I do. I love all y'all's energy. But why couldn't you get behind a farm plan? And you know what they told me? Oh, Steve, your farm plan's too large. It's $375 billion. Trump has already spent $375 billion on the Iran war. And so could have done that. And not only that, let's talk about the $500 billion that was given to data centers. Trump is farming data centers. And I told them last year, I said, Brooke Rollins is no good. Brooke Rollins was she was director of diplomacy under Rick Perry when I farmed in Texas. And I've been resurrected out of not literally, folks, because I've just been brought back, into this time frame, And I've been brought back into this time frame to tell you because I was one of the farms that was destroyed under Rick Perry and under this small ag and all this stuff and labeling and all this stuff. I said, Brooke Rollins is no good. She's going to destroy agriculture. And now we have the new one farm, one file, and Palantir is going to run it. So guess what? Surveillance is coming for every bit of the farming in America. I told them and I told them and I told them. So I'm batting 3 for 3 today. I'm going to hit, but it'll be June. Supreme Court's going to decide the ruling, I think, by June. So I may be batting 4 for 4 by June. Listen, I'm sorry I'm right. I just am.
Don't want to be right. All right. So let's look at a couple of things here. So there is a video that we've got regarding the Monsanto and the Supreme Court is hearing the whole case on this. Let's listen to this video. It's really interesting.
A popular weed killer could be killing more than just weeds. The question at the center of this case is, should a consumer be allowed to sue a company if their product gives them cancer and there was no warning about possible dangers on the label? Roundup is a product that kills weeds that the EPA deemed safe for consumer use. But over 100,000 plaintiffs say it gave them cancer, specifically non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Monsanto, the parent company of Roundup, is asking the court for protection from consumers trying to sue them.
The plaintiffs are saying, you didn't warn me that the product causes cancer. And EPA is saying such a warning is not required, it's not warranted, and if you put it on the label, it would be false and misleading. So there's a direct conflict between the state law and the federal law.
Lawrence Ebner with the Atlantic Legal Foundation explains this case can get into the weeds.
If any individual is free to file a lawsuit against a pesticide producer claiming that they became ill because a certain warning was not put on the label, that would undermine EPA's regulation.
Patty Goldman, who represents farmers who have been harmed by exposure to Roundup, explains why it's necessary for consumers to have recourse.
This is the way to defray those expenses. It also is a way that will create incentives for companies to be more careful about their products and maybe not put them on the market or change what the ingredients are.
Oral arguments in this case will be heard Monday, with a decision expected by June. At the Supreme Court, I'm Molly Martinez.
All right. So, Steve, you say you don't think that they're going to win, that Monsanto is going to win. Why?
Because they have enough money to make this prolonged forever. All the people on the Supreme Court steps today, they have enough lawyers to fight every one of them for the next 20 years. And Michelle, I want to read this because I just pulled up the Monsanto Roundup label. Okay, here's what it says. Causes moderate eye irritation, harmful if inhaled. Okay, well, if you're spraying it, how do you think you're going to get it? Now, yeah, you can get it on your skin. It says avoid contact with eyes and skin is harmful and breathing vapors or spray. Well, listen, if you're a farmer or anyone and you go out there and you mix a little bit of this up in a jug and you watch the plants dead in 2 days, some common sense should come into you that if it kills a plant in 2 days, what do you think it's doing to you? So I'm not for Monsanto. Please, people, don't say, well, he's for Monsanto. No, I'm not. I don't use those products and I don't use them on my farm. And you don't have to use them. And they didn't use prior to 1980. They didn't use these things on the farms. And this is the problem. This is why Monsanto is going to say, well, we said causes damage. And that we know that it's dangerous. We know it. But the thing about it is, and also too, agriculture, I'm going to stand up for the big ag today. Okay. Big giant farms. I live 25 miles from the largest wheat production in America, right here, the Palouse Valley. Listen, these farmers were driven into this to use these products. Okay. What do you expect them to do? You expect them to just change overnight? No, they farm 10,000 acres and they're not going to change overnight because they can't, because the seeds are a certain way, the chemicals a certain way, and farming is a certain way. That's the reason I wrote a farm plan. RFK, that's the reason he came to my farm. It was a huge mistake for RFK to come to my farm. It was a huge mistake because the fact of the matter is he has no excuse. He has no excuse because he was given a farm plan and how to do this, and not only that, it would have strengthened the veteran community by far because we would use all veterans, all military, all those people. Listen, Ron, take a clip out of this, put this in. My farm plan would use a military operation, would interject, it would have been like D-Day, and it would have been orders. These farmers would not be going in, these military veterans would be going in like, yeah, I want to sign up. No, you are going to farm, and this is what we're going to do. And your children are going to grow up this farm. This is the way it's going to work. And by 5 years, you'll be able to buy your own farm. And it was a plus win all across the board. And Trump didn't listen. And the reason he didn't listen is because the biggest side in America has just happened to destroy American agriculture.
Okay. So, a lot in that. So let's talk about. There's a lot in there.
Whoa.
Well, you said, okay, so I want to ask you something about now, people using Monsanto. Is that the product that you've been talking about is a replacement for that, or is that something else?
No, the product that I sell, in-soil algae, is not a product that is a replacement for Roundup. It does not kill weeds. It does not do anything, but microbes, good rich soil, and farming the right way, using this, interjecting these microbes into your soil, in-soil algae is one of the biggest things you can do. I've got a bottle of right here. This bottle right here is $20, and you can do this. This will do 1 acre. And I'm using this on my fields. There's been 54,000 acres been sprayed up here in the Northwest. Some of these farmers now, they're in their 3rd year, 4th year. Some of them going into their 5th year. They're not even using fertilizer because microbes are the most important thing about soil. And I'm using this. One of the main reasons I'm using it is because every day we're sprayed by, chemtrails and all the barium, strontium, and all that stuff. And that stuff kills microbes. So, all these aluminums, all these things go in the soil, it's hard on the microbes. That's what your plant needs. It's microbes transfer the nutrients to the soil, to the plant, and that's the way it works. And that's why I'm using this in-soil algae, and the link is on, I think Ron will have the link up. But
yeah,
if you use this product, it's going to combat and rebuild the microbes every time you use it.
Okay, so we have the link. Producer Ron is saying that the link is in today's show description. And of course, or I'm sure you've got it in your bio on your social media.
Instagram, yeah. Out of the Wild 3D. Out of the Wild 3D is my Instagram. Videos are up there if you want to keep up with what I'm doing. And listen, folks, I wouldn't even be on this and have 122,000 followers, but I kind of got drug into this fight, and I'm still here. I've wanted to leave several times and just go and do my own thing, but I've over and over and over. I've been in the chemtrail fight. I've helped write the Mystic bill, the weather modification bills. I've done all these things because what I do is I tell people the right way to go. I know it's hard, and sometimes the truth is negative, and I tell it exactly the way it is, and I can't be bought. That's another reason I'm not in my home. I'm not up there at the Supreme Court. I told them last year when I spoke in D.C., I will not get in the pesticide immunity fight. I love y'all. Good luck. You won't win.
Well, you've been on the show here many times, and that's something that you've said is leave them alone. Let them do their thing, and let's come over here and let's start our solution, because we're not going to, you've always said to me, we're not going to be able to beat that fight. They've got so much money, that we need to leave them alone and just do our own thing and move forward and forge ahead. And so it'll be interesting to see in June what happens if they win or lose. You know what I mean? So,
well,
okay.
Michelle,
So
let me say this real quick, Michelle.
Yeah.
All right. Let's say this video goes viral, and let's say it hits 100,000 views. All right. I want to know, out of everyone watching the show today, how many of you have bought food from a rancher or from a farmer, or you bought that you don't have to worry about these chemicals? Okay. I don't use them.
Yeah.
I don't use them. So did everybody buy from me? No, I plowed 25,000 potatoes underground that didn't have any chemicals on them. You know why? Because everybody says, oh, yeah, I'm in this fight. No, you're not in the fight because you didn't buy it. And then you complain about high cost of good food, but good food should be high.
Yeah. Well, we had a lot of viewers that actually purchased from you. So.
Oh, listen, your viewers are great. I'm not talking about your viewers. I'm talking about the new ones that are going to watch this video. It's their fault.
Yeah. All right. So let's look here. So RFK Jr., he comes out and calls on farmers not to sell their mama cows. Let's take a look. There's a gentleman who weighs in. He's a cattle farmer, and he weighs in on what RFK Jr. said. It's very interesting. And this is just another perspective from a different farmer.
To increase the size of the herds. We had 132 million head in 1972. We have 92 million today. And a lot of producers are now, because of fluctuations in the markets and uncertainty, slaughtering the breeding cows. And I'd ask you to stop doing that. And we need a lot of beef, and we want to make it here in America. We don't want to be importing it from other countries.
There's a couple of really important things here that I hit on in a long form video on our YouTube channel that you can check out. The link is in our link tree. The important aspects of what he just said and why this video went viral, especially amongst cattle producers. Everybody in the cattle world is talking about this, right? Breeders are selling their mama cows because the market doesn't work. The price point's high right now, so they're cashing out, they're retiring, they're getting out of business. So there is no, you can't make a plea of like, hey, go support your country to prevent us from importing beef from foreign countries. Two of the big four that produce America's beef are owned by Brazil. So we don't have a free market. You know, just those two companies control more than 60% of the beef market in the United States. So that's the part that gets me frustrated with politicians on both sides of the aisle is one, they have no idea how our food's produced in America. And then two, nobody addresses the true issue, and whether that's nefarious or incompetency, I don't know. Maybe a mixture of both, but we are not going to convince cattle producers to stop selling their mama cows until we fix the market. We do not have a free market in the beef cattle world. It does not work to the advantage of cattle producers. In fact, I had this conversation yesterday with a guy that produces really great beef out of Georgia, and he just mentioned how sick he is of getting beat up on people talking how expensive beef are. He brought up, actually, he did a side-by-side comparison of the increase in the price of gold compared to the increase of the price of beef. And it's staggering to see, especially because beef is something we consume every day. Our inputs have been going up for the last 50 years, but the price point is dictated by 4 companies. That's not capitalism. It's not anywhere close to capitalism. We don't fix this problem in America until we fix the marketplace. That's how capitalism is supposed to work, and our government is supposed to have those guardrails to make sure that we do have a free market in capitalism, which is not what we have in the beef market today. So unfortunately, this problem is going to continue to perpetuate until we've either exported our entire beef production to other countries that don't always necessarily like us, or we fix the market. Those are the two options. And our government can't make pleas to the cattle farmer to support America when America is not supporting them. And this is exactly why I started Ballot Provisions.
Okay, so I thought that was good just to hear a different farmer's perspective for everybody. A lot of my viewers are very familiar with what Steve has been sharing with us for months now. And so R.L. Woods says, I grow most of my veggies and can them, and we raise them, and we eat our own beef. And so as well. And so, you know, and I think it was R.L. Wood that said that her potatoes are blooming beautifully. She got some of yours, Steve, if I'm understanding correctly. And so, and then J.P. O'Toole says, Steve, I purchased some of your potatoes and saved enough to plant hopefully this coming week. In Northeast Wisconsin, I plan on expanding that potato harvest and sharing with people in my community. So that's fantastic. And so, okay, No Nonsense Netta says Palantir through the military is surveilling everything now, even your health data. Yeah. Because Deborah L. West says Palantir is going to surveil farms, and did I hear that right? How? And so so we know that they have signed an agreement with the government, and there's all kinds of stuff going on right now with Palantir. Let's look at this video so that way, if people don't know some backstory and how even Hulk Hogan was involved, let's take a look. It's very interesting.
Peter Theil co-founded PayPal, then built Palantir, the data company that runs surveillance for the CIA and FBI, with access to your data and almost no public oversight. In 2007, Gawker Media outed him as gay. He waited 9 years, secretly funded Hulk Hogan's lawsuit against them, and bankrupted the entire company. Nobody knew it was him until it was over. He then spent $15 million, the largest individual donation to a Senate candidate in history, getting his former employee, J.D. Vance, elected. Palantir's government contracts have grown significantly since. He got New Zealand citizenship and bought land to build a doomsday bunker to hide from the world he's in part creating.
Sitting in a bunker, hiding from the world he's creating in part. So there's a lot there with him. You know, he's one of the founders. He founded PayPal with Elon Musk. And so, you know, the whole PayPal mafia. And so wasn't he the co-founder? And so he's got a lot going on, and he's now getting all these government contracts. So we'll see how that proceeds. But is he part of the whole thing where you were talking about the geofencing of the cows? Doesn't that go to him?
Yep, 100%. And this what listen, folks. This partnership with USDA, Brooke Rollins and Peter Thiel, everybody should go look up Peter Thiel's CEO and see what this guy talks about. He laughs about putting, fentanyl in urine and pouring it on people to kill them. I mean, listen, you have to realize that putting Peter Thiel in charge of one farm, one file, that's the new thing that Brooke Rollins is doing, one farm, one file. Doing that's like putting wolves in charge of the sheep.
What does that mean? One farm, one file.
Well, my understanding is that the way this is going to work is all farms that are on USDA loans. I don't know when that'll stretch in or how that'll work out if you're a farmer and you're not on USDA loan. But my understanding is they're going to have it. And basically, they're doing it under food safety and national security. All of a sudden, Brooke Rollins is talking about national security. Now, in my farm plan that I wrote to create 1 million new 40-acre farms, number one was national security. 20% of all the food that was going to go into whatever the farm plan that I was doing would have been national security. My dad was head of the USDA when I was a boy growing up down there in East Texas. It was called the ASCS office then. And all the 20% was national defense. It's always been that way. It hasn't been that way lately. And we are importing 25% of our food. They know our enemies across this world know that we don't have enough food to feed our people. Now they're all of a sudden doing national security thing and they're going to do it under one farm and one file. No, this is nonsense. If you really wanted national security, you would put in thousands and thousands. We need 1 million. In 2024, when I wrote my farm plan, we needed 1 million new 40-acre farms. Now to explain that, it's 120 acres. You farm 40 of it. So you run cattle, hogs, and chickens on the rest of it, and you rotate. That's the old farm style. That's what worked. And that's what you just need to create farms, farm, just farm after farm, and change how the processing is done and change the pricing. And that was what in my farm plan. And I told them that if you wouldn't do all of it once, it wouldn't work. It would fail.
Well, at one point you were talking with the military and was helping them to have a farm or farms throughout the country, because really, I mean, it makes sense that the military would do some farming. I think this has to do with even our own security here in our own country.
Well, think about this, Michelle. I've tried to express this so much. Not one person in my farm plan, not one. So everybody that's watching this, if you're not a veteran, you would not have been in my farm plan. And the reason you wouldn't have is because I need people with grit that can work. And you talk about a guy who's been to Afghanistan, he's been to, all over the world. This guy's got grit. He can do this. He's got a little touch of PTSD. I think, if you farm, you got to be crazy anyway. So they all fit in. So I wrote this plan in order to help these guys, homeless vets, all these guys, pull them out, put them on these farms, put them to work. They'd be too tired to have PTSD, and they would rebuild the agrarian society. And that is the number one thing in my farm plan that people miss. And I had a comment the other day on one of my videos. Well, you're just mad because RFK didn't choose your farm plan. I said, what are you talking about? My farm plan. This farm plan would have benefited every single person in America. It would have took every one of the veterans all the way back, as far back. If you're 70 years old and you served in wartime and you've done this, or not even in wartime, but you have grit and you can farm, it was going to help you and going to help you to have your own farm. And the other thing too, Brian Massard and I wrote a paid plan for President Trump in order to change the financing on the farming, which is number one. In order, if he just would have done that one thing, just change the financing on the farming, it would have just been catastrophically a major change for the next 100 years. And no, they didn't do any of it. Nothing. Zero.
So somebody was asking me this morning and making the point, when you read the Constitution and you look at all these different entities that are up and running in our country, is the Department of Agriculture a constitutional entity that's supposed to be going on in our country? And the answer is no. So I'm wondering, there are a lot of those. You drive up and down the streets in DC, there are a lot of buildings that are really not even constitutionally running in this country lawfully. So I think it's interesting to see how this continues to go, and we'll keep an eye on it for sure.
Well, Michelle, here's the thing. Yeah, I know. And everybody said, well, your farm plan sounds socialistic. Well, what do you want it to do?
No, it doesn't sound that way.
We have a government system, and we have a constitutional. We're supposed to be a constitutional republic, but we're not running that way. And if you had a president, and you had Bobby Kennedy, and you had Brooke Rollins, and you have the House Republicans and the Senate, if they really, really, really did want to fix this nation, if they did, they would have done my farm plan, and they would have poured the millions of dollars. It's $375 billion if the government would have done it. It's $700 billion if you want to do it on private. And people talk about that we want to change these things. No, it's very, very, very expensive. And if you want to change America, that's why you have to do it. And if they did want to change America, they would have done it. And no, instead they're going to do one farm, one file.
All right, let's let's take a look at another topic. Let's shift. So let's talk about, is your car, your truck, your automobile, is it yours anymore? Let's take a look at this one.
Come on. No. Now imagine there was an emergency outside the truck, an accident, something terrible on the ranch with a chainsaw. And I jump in this truck, but the truck, it won't shift into drive. Why? Because the cameras and sensors inside this cab won't let it shift, because it detects my eyes are big, there's a lot of emotion, there's some panic, and it doesn't feel that I'm fit to drive. Now that's not science fiction. That is happening because Ford just filed the patents. Ford actually has a series of patents down at the U.S. Patent and Trade Office that deal with the sensors and cameras inside the cab of their truck. And if the sensors in that truck determine that you're not fit to drive, that truck will not actually shift from park to drive. Now they already have a system called telematics, and that's where they can actually pull up cameras in real time inside the cab of their fleet vehicles. Now, they actually market this to insurance companies, because the truth is, this is really about who owns the data and who owns the liability. Now, your name might actually be on the title of this truck, and you may have paid for it, but you don't own it. Now, Ford didn't file just one patent. They filed a stack of them, all within months of each other. Are you sitting down? Get this. This Ford technology patent doesn't just watch you. This one puts you in jail. Ford filed a patent, serial number 0104469, where the system takes your biometric data, your face, your iris, and your fingerprint, and it runs it through a criminal database in real time. While you're sitting in your own truck, think about what that means. You wake up one morning. You walk out to your driveway, you climb into a vehicle with your name on the title, on property with your name on the deed. And before you go anywhere, before you've done a single thing wrong, your truck is already running your face through a law enforcement database. Ford's own patent language describes this as potentially useful for police. They wrote that. Ford wrote that into the patent application. So the question isn't whether this technology can be abused. Ford already told you who it's for. You just didn't know that you were buying a cop car. Now I'm going to walk you through a few of these patents. Lip reading, cameras inside your cab, machine learning trained on lip movement datasets, cloud connected, your face processed somewhere you'll never see, stored as long as they want. Acoustic lip reading, if the cameras aren't enough, the system emits inaudible sound waves and reads the echoes bouncing off of your mouth. You can't see it, it's just happening. Biometrics, your face, fingerprint, iris, filed February 2024, and it was published August 2025. This one is assigned a serial number because it's real. Ad listening. This is scary. It monitors conversations between everyone in the cab. It serves targeted ads based on what you and others are talking about while you're driving. In Ford's words, maximum opportunity for ad-based monetization. No description of how that data is protected either. None. How about Ford Pro Telematics? Now this one isn't a patent. This one is actually a product page. Right now, fleet managers can pull live in-cabin video feeds of drivers on their phones. Ford markets seatbelt compliance alerts with the explicit benefit of lowering insurance costs. They said it themselves. This is the infrastructure, and once the infrastructure exists, it's going to get used and abused. Now, Ford isn't alone in this. This is an arms race. Smart Eye driver monitoring software is already in over 2 million cars globally. The EU's general safety regulation mandates drowsiness systems as standard equipment going forward. GM deployed biometric seat sensors and heart rate monitoring in production trucks.
This is insane. All right, so a couple things over the weekend. I heard about a gentleman who he had gone earlier in the weekend over, or maybe on Friday. He had gone around town and he got pulled over, and the police officers thought that he had a warrant out for his arrest. So what had happened is he had driven by one of these cameras that scanned his driver's license plate. And so they reported immediately. They find out, they get an alert. And so again, this is like he said, you're buying a cop car. Well, he was driving a cop car unbeknownst to him. So they pull him over. He doesn't have a warrant out for his arrest. So he's driving by the next day or two later, and the same thing happened again. The third time, he knew, I'm going to try to avoid these cameras because they keep flagging me and I keep getting pulled over, and it keeps being a big ordeal. And there's just misidentifying him. Think that it won't happen? Let's talk about the woman who got misidentified for a crime in a completely different state, was arrested, put into prison, and sat there for 6 months until she was able to prove that she wasn't even in the state, that she was in her home state the whole time. 6 months. This grandmother sat in prison, Steve. We covered this story a couple of months ago. 6 months.
Well,
misidentified.
I'm going to give a disclaimer here. If you like the Michelle Moore show and you like the Out of the Wild 3D, the disclaimer in the fine print on that patent is it drives your butt to jail.
Yeah. Because there's going to be stuff that's going to happen where you put something on social media they don't like. You like the wrong video. You reshare, you retweet. It doesn't matter. There's going to be something somewhere, just like in Australia during the whole slowing of the spread, the pregnant woman, the very pregnant woman. Did you see that video where cops came knocking on her door, put her in handcuffs, and took her to jail because of something she put on social media? So these flock cameras, or whatever cameras they're using, I'm assuming that they're calling them flock cameras. And so if these flock cameras are misidentifying you, or the system's wrong, or whatever it might be, you're going to be in some trouble here. And like he said at the very beginning of the story, what about if you get in the car and you got an emergency and the car won't start because, well, you put something on social media that you shouldn't have put on there? And so this is a real problem. And I had said to the car salesman that sold me a car back, a year or so ago, my car does that thing where if you haven't pushed the button, it turns like off at the red light. And I said, somebody needs to go to prison for this, because my husband's car does it. My car does it. So when I look at, and he said, oh, they'll never stop because they get money back from the government because of this. And so what we just saw, even though it's Ford that has filed the patents and all of this, y'all, it will only take so much time, and they'll get rid of all the cars that don't have it. And then guess what? We're all going to have this crapola in our cars that we're driving because we won't have a choice. So just saying, it's not going to be just Ford. The solution isn't going to be, well, I just won't buy a Ford car, And so anyways, I thought it's just insane. And there's so many different areas that this is happening to different people in different ways that it's messing people's lives up. So we'll see how this proceeds.
Well, that's why they're building the data centers. The data centers are the control. They're building the control switch. And so anything, if you say Trump's driving the wrong way in agriculture, well, they're going to, that's what I tell people, if you like me or follow me or does something, and, I've been in trouble so much on Instagram and so many different places. Listen, if you like and follow me, it's tough luck. You're already in the system.
All right. So
not the good side.
I did write this down. He said, it's, so you thought you bought a car. He goes, it's about who owns the data and the liability. So just think about that. He said, who owns the data? So yeah, your hard drive only carries so much that it's going to be able to hold in data. Think about that. That's why they're having to do the data centers, just like you said. Excellent point. Okay. So in 2018, the state took a man's land. Let's see what happened.
The state seized 50 acres of his ranch through eminent domain for a natural gas pipeline. The pipeline was never built. Now the state refuses to return his land. He wants it back.
They took 50 acres of my ranch in 2018 for a pipeline project. Said it was critical infrastructure. Paid me $120,000, which was half what it was worth. The pipeline was never built. 6 years later, there's no pipeline, no construction, nothing. The land is just sitting there empty. I asked for it back and they said no. They're now planning to sell it to developers. That's been in my family for 4 generations. They took it for public use, but now they're selling it for private profit. That's not what eminent domain is for.
Your Honor, once property is acquired through eminent domain and compensation is paid, the title transfers to the state. The state has no obligation to reverse the transaction if project plans change. Mr. Morrison was compensated. What the state does with the land afterward is not his concern. The eminent domain process was completed legally and properly.
Ms. Price, the state took this man's land under the premise of public necessity for a pipeline. That pipeline doesn't exist. How is holding his land still serving a public purpose?
The state has the discretion to determine how to use acquired property, Your Honor.
Discretion? You took his land for a specific public project that never materialized. Now you want to sell it to developers for profit. That's not eminent domain. That's a land grab. Eminent domain requires ongoing public use. If the stated purpose no longer exists, the original owner has the right to reacquire the property. This is basic constitutional law. The state will return the 50 acres to Mr. Morrison within 90 days and refund the original $120,000 payment. Eminent domain is not a real estate speculation tool for the state.
Okay, so so much going on there. So they took it for public use, but then they turned around and tried to flip it for profit as private property to developers. And so this guy had a farm that had been in his family for like 4 generations. I think he says there in the video. So Steve, as a farmer, what are your thoughts about all this?
Now, listen, what I want to tell people, if eminent domain does come into your play of anything you're doing in agriculture, don't accept any of the money. Now, listen, what they'll do is, my understanding is how this works is they'll set up a bank account with your name on it and they'll fund that money in there. Just don't touch the money. And then you need some really good lawyers that'll fight on your side in order to fight these claims of eminent domain. But let's face it, we have a rogue government and they do what they want to do.
I think we've had a rogue government, though, for decades. I mean, you said something years ago that I thought was such a good point. You said, we have proof that voting doesn't really matter. And you said, because look at, and that there's been voter fraud. You said, because look at the fact that we have pretty much every president except for, Donald Trump is not related to them. And then there's one other president in history that hasn't been, that wasn't part of this bloodline, that they're all related. I remember when I first heard this back years ago, I remember thinking, well, how could Obama be related? And then you find out that Obama was related to the Bushes. And so, which is very interesting. And so, because remember, Obama's mama was white. His mama's daddy, the granddaddy, was CIA, by the way. Okay, so very interesting, all very interesting. And so I thought that was good story. It was another one that at least he was able to have the ability to get his land back if he gave the $120,000 back. So, all right, did you see this about U.S. Attorney for D.C., Jeanine Pirro? Let's take a look and see what she's done. This is very interesting.
An update on the DOJ criminal investigation into Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Let's watch.
Governors of the Federal Reserve System. Now, the American public is fed up with public monies that seem to go into a black hole, especially in D.C., where no one is held accountable. One of the age-old tools that all prosecutors have to investigate any crime, including cost overruns, is a grand jury subpoena. Today, however, in Washington, an activist judge has taken that tool away from us by inserting himself and preventing the grand jury from even obtaining, let alone hearing evidence. He has neutered the grand jury's ability to investigate crime. As a result, Jerome Powell today is now bathed in immunity, preventing my office from investigating the Federal Reserve. This is wrong, and it is without legal authority. In June of 2025, Jerome Powell testified before the Senate Banking Committee, making, quote, questionable statements that did not comport with publicly available documents. And it was regarding the atrocious cost overrun of more than $1 billion. I didn't say million, I said billion, in renovations to his headquarters. This from the man who says that he is the steward of our public funds. In November, the United States Attorney's Office began an inquiry. Prosecutors from my office gathered information for months before we served 2 grand jury subpoenas. On December 19th, we sent an email to the Federal Reserve to have a conversation, a meeting, or even a phone call to discuss our concerns. There was no response. On December 29th, we sent an email to have a conversation, a meeting, or even a phone call to discuss our concerns. Again, we were ignored. We, in fact, asked to meet the first week in January. We were ignored. It was at that point that 2 grand jury subpoenas were issued to the Federal Reserve, not even to Jerome Powell. Again, no response, no compliance, but instead a woe is me video by Mr. Powell falsely claiming that he was being threatened with criminal indictment. And claiming victim status, Powell proceeds to call his political friends in D.C. and around the world to gin up support for himself, all the while refusing to produce simple documents. Now enter local District Court Judge James Boasberg, whose written decision on its face makes clear his antipathy toward President Trump and this administration. He quashes both subpoenas, thereby prohibiting us from reviewing any records and precluding us from submitting records to the grand jury. That grand jury, of course, comprised of ordinary people. Ladies and gentlemen, no one is above the law.
All right, Steve.
Nobody's above the law unless you own the bank and you're not a part of the government. And that's the issue on this whole thing, is that we have a problem. And listen, it's very hard. I'd like to ask your listeners right now, how many of you believe and how many people do you know are awake to this, that the Federal Reserve and all this stuff is really not part of the government? And I told my wife yesterday, I said, you know what, something really stinks. And I've never really dug into this. But if you really figure up how many people there are in America that give money back to the government and pay and the taxes we pay, I bet the numbers would shock all of us of what really is going on, how they're robbing this nation blind.
Mm-hmm. Look, if they need money, they can just print it.
Print away. They should have done it for the farm plan. My farm plan, just print 375 billion and rebuild the nation.
Well, I mean, the Federal Reserve doesn't want to fix the agricultural issues in the country. Yeah.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
No, the Federal Reserve is the deep state. Okay, so I thought this was funny. Pierre's mom won. Oh my goodness, this is funny. When I was riding in a friend's car, a new car, I noticed that it turned off. I didn't mention it to her because I didn't want to embarrass her that her car was messing up. Little did I know that it was a feature. That's the feature. Pierre's mom won. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, somebody needs to go to prison for this, because every time you get in the car, if you don't touch that button and push it, then every time you go to a stop, it just cuts off. And it is so annoying because, first of all, I said to my husband, who really grew up under the hood of a car, I said, there's just no part of me that believes that this is better for our environment. But also, most importantly, I don't see how this is better for our cars and the transmissions. Like, I don't really know anything about changing your own oil, changing a tire, any of that stuff. But it's just common sense. This is not a good thing for your engine. And my husband said, "You're absolutely right. It's not. They're lying if they're trying to say it is." But like I said, the car salesman, I remember saying, "Somebody needs to go to prison for this." And he said, "Never going to stop." And I said, "Why? Why?" And he said, "Because they get big money for it, because of the government. They get kickbacks." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me. Dirty, filthy, rotten scoundrels. This is just, oh, I can't stand the button. You can't," because at first I thought surely there's a way to make this stop. No, I mean, I Googled it. I searched online. The first car I had that did that, I was like, yeah, there's got to be a way to turn this off. No, there's not. It's required. There's no opt-out button. And it just is insane. So it's just another thing to have to do every time you get in the car that's just irritating us instead of actually doing anything good. And I do believe that it's got plenty of bad things that it does for the car. So those who know, they know. But anyways, okay, so let's take a look at Tim Burchett. He's been making quite a few funny videos and just really, I mean, we would say outlandish, but yet we know that he's right in line with what we're talking about. You know, he's actually saying, yeah, let's bring not only the hangings back, but let's make them public. And I'm like, yes, please. And so we get a few of those, and maybe we'll get a few pedophiles and child rapists hung up real good in front of everybody. And I bet a lot of people will start having some second thoughts before they commit any crimes. So I'm all for that. But anyways, what Tim Burchett has weighed in on gas prices. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, gas prices are awful. We're being gouged by the gas companies. We get zero oil from Iran, and we're actually exporting it. I know it's a commodity, but we give the oil companies billions of dollars in subsidies, and it's not right. They're ripping us off. But President Trump has orchestrated another ceasefire, and I'm confident he's the deal maker in chief.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting. What do you notice about that video, what he said? And I'll share what I noticed.
Well, here's the issue. Let's talk about the ceasefire that Trump initiates. The problem is that Trump initiates the ceasefire and Benjamin Netanyahu is not listening. And so Trump initiates the ceasefire and Benjamin Netanyahu launches the deal. Let me just say this. The backstory of this whole thing of what he's saying is the destruction of the middle class. Because let's face it, if you have high fuel prices and you have high grocery and you have all this stuff, it is about taking control of the middle class. And even in buying the farms, cattle being high, there is a black, dark side to this. Yes, if I was a rancher, well, I did. 8 years ago, I had 48 head of mama cows. I sold them all out. If I was a rancher, small rancher with 48 to 150 mama cows right now, I would sell out because the market is high. The part of that is, the dark side of that is, and same thing with what he's talking about. It's all set up in order to destroy the middle class, because if the food, well, people say, well, I'm not going to eat Beyond Meat or I'm not going to eat lab grown meat. Well, when that's when that's $3.85 a pound in the grocery store and ground beef is $15, no, that's what you're going to eat. And that's the thing I'm trying to get your viewers and trying to get people to see the real story, the whole entire story. That is the hard part.
Yeah, makes sense. Going back to the story we were just talking about with the starters. So Christ Believer says it's just supposed to save on fuel. I used to drive for dealerships. Bull. I believe it, Christ Believer. Oh my goodness. Deborah L. West says, I think it's hard on the starter. Yes. My husband, the mechanic, said I am right. I bet he did. Yes, absolutely. The transmission, the starter, there's no way. There's no way, and there's no way it's saving gas either. I'm with Christ Believer. And then Avery R. said, ruin the starter over time, tactic to keep us in debt, because you've got the plan. What is it called? It's the whole thing with the light bulb. Planned. It's where they make things that in order for them to not last. And like I've been watching this about the Speed Queens. So are you familiar with the Speed Queens? Now they've come out with a new model. So Speed Queen is apparently the brand. I hope I have this brand right. I didn't know what it was at first until Joe M tweeted out a few weeks ago, and I happened to see it. So planned obsolescent, thank you. And so it's where they build something in a way for it to not last. Well, these Speed Clean washers and dryers are known for lasting, and they are continuing to last. And apparently, now I haven't been to a laundromat, so I don't know, but apparently that's what laundromats use, are called Speed Queens, because I got into a whole, looking it up and seeing exactly what's going on with these Speed Queens. And they're not connected to the internet. They don't have all these extra bells and whistles. They continue, from what I can tell, they're continuing to build at the level and with the same features as decades ago. And so what's happening is they're lasting 20 years, and they might be a little bit more than some of the other things that are available at the appliance place, but they're lasting, 2 decades. I don't know about you, but I don't have a washer or a dryer that could last that long. Well, maybe my dryer, but washing machine certainly isn't lasting 2 decades. I can tell you that right now.
Well, I have Speed Queen, and the reason I do have Speed Queen is because
of course you do.
Of course I do. Listen, the only reason I know is because I had a good friend of mine. I had a washer and dryer that was only about 4 years old, and it went on the blink. Well, the circuit to fix it was like $179 or $200, and then I had to tear into it and fix it. And he said, "Hey, man, I got a buddy that owns a bunch of laundromats." He said, "Let me call him, see what he uses." He said, "Hey, tell your friend to get a Speed Queen. He'll love it. It'll last forever." And that's the only reason I know this stuff. It's no, I didn't use a Speed Queen when I did farming. No, I didn't know that. I didn't know this, but I'd have Speed Queen right now. And yes, and hot water heaters don't last. Refrigerators don't last. Dishwashers don't last. None of these things last anymore. And I think they have it programmed in there. So, hey, 4 or 5 years. And wait, you pay the warranty, and then you replace it. Then it just goes to the bone pile.
So I had lunch with a friend on Saturday, and she told me a story about refrigerators. Funny you bring it up. So she said she had bought a refrigerator for a rental property that she had, right? I forget the brand. I think she said Samsung or something. And so she said she buys this refrigerator. She didn't buy the extended warranty. So about a year and a half into owning the refrigerator, it starts giving problems. Finally, it goes out. She calls to see about it being repaired. She doesn't have the extended warranty. So it's going to be like $700, $700 or $800. I think she said $700. And she's like, at this point, it's insane. Like, at that point, it had not gone out yet. So she gets it repaired. It goes out completely a few months later. She ends up having to buy brand new. And she goes, the entire refrigerator was completely worthless. She said they couldn't fix it. It was completely out. There was no fixing it. And so she ended up having to go buy a brand new one. She said it was the most insane thing. So we were talking about that. The whole obsolescence is what it's called. It's planned obsolescence. And there is a documentary. Producer Ron, what's the name of the documentary? It's about light bulbs. I just know, and then by the way, too, I was thinking about this over the weekend and last week. So whatever happened to the whole thing about we were going to change the kind of light bulbs, we were going to change over to LED, and our electric bills were going to go down. Like, hadn't seen that happen. You know what I mean? It's so full of crap. Cousin who 77 said we are now a throwaway society. We are, because we have to, because it's just junk. Producer Ron says the light bulb conspiracy. Will you please put the link to that? We've run that before. Will you put the link to that in today's show description? So if you go to Rumble, you'll be able to see in the show description of today's show the link to the light bulb conspiracy. I'm sure if you put Michelle Moore or Michelle Moore show and the light bulb conspiracy, you'll see it. So anyways, but yeah, it's just amazing. WR Carr says, yeah, I bought a new washer 7 years ago, paid $1,000. Computer. I see where this is going. It's got a computer in it. That ain't good. Computer went out. My repairman said he couldn't get one. I will never buy another Whirlpool product. Whirlpool used to be good. Yeah, no bueno now. So anyway, so it's interesting. We all got these war stories on this. Okay, so I told you I was going to tell you what I recognized about it. He talked about the oil companies. I've been doing a lot of thinking here lately about this kind of stuff. And he says it's the oil companies doing this. And I think what happens is a lot of people want to blame the president for things that the president doesn't necessarily have any control over. And so it's just like with the Monsanto thing, with this hearing and of the Supreme Court, he doesn't have control over the Supreme Court. In fact, just recently, he was posting about how, these Supreme Court justices that I appointed, they painted a completely different picture than the way that they've been ruling. And so he's saying, if I would have known then what I know now, I wouldn't have appointed them. And so he just said that within the last week or so. And so, I find that very interesting. I think there is a lot of misinformation and a lot of disinformation mixed in with other things that we see. Of course, I do believe that we're in a 5th generation war. We're clearly in some kind of a war. And I see hints of good things happening. And so just like with Janine Pirro saying this about what's going on with the Fed, Donald Trump's been telling us that they were spending over $1 billion. He was the one who was saying, Jerome needs to go. And why is there so much money that is supposedly being spent on these renovations in DC for the Fed? So he's been screaming that from the rooftops. And so it's very interesting that now she's come out and she's talking about the funny business that they've been doing. I've got another video. Listen to President Trump talking with a reporter at the White House. This was within the last week. Here we go.
That's fake news. When you say that, darling, that's fake news.
Well, why would you the Department of Defense?
Listen, be quiet. Listen. You don't listen. You never listen. That's why you're second rate. We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense.
Okay, so there you go. He's saying, look, we're going to clean up America. And so I find that interesting. I had a conversation with someone this morning and he said, the fact of the matter is just like Saturday night. I mean, do you really believe that was President Trump and Melania? They're not going to be in harm's way. And so I actually didn't even stay up to see the talk and press conference and all that. I went to bed because I know good enough that wasn't them that was there. And so it kind of goes back to the whole thing about the 5th generation warfare. And I think it's a war of psyops is what I believe. I think we see a lot of things that are not true. We don't know what exactly is going on. And I think it's a very confusing time, a very difficult. Look, can you even tell when you're seeing an AI video?
Well, and the thing about it is that's what Peter Thiel and those guys are talking about. They're talking about accepting the new social, news. The news is going to be, it'll be a person like me, be a person like you, but it'll be AI, and they'll be telling the stories and be saying kind of the same things, but directing them right into the psyop. And it is hard to tell. And, I've heard those people tell the story about where they get a phone call from their daughter, sounds just like their daughter, everything is. And listen, folks, we are heading into a world where we will not be able to tell. And that's the dangerous part about this. And that's why I wanted people to grow their own food. That's the reason I wanted people to go to my farm school. I wanted them to learn how to use the moon phase calendar, to learn how to use these different things, can your own food, do your own food. Because the only way to win this war on this system is to opt out. You just have to opt out. But there's not enough of us to opt out.
Yeah, that's so good. That's a good point. Next week, we're going to have to go over the moon phase calendar, if you would, please. And let's talk about that. We hadn't talked about it. And I'd like for you to go over, maybe we go over like last month's moon phase calendar and you show what it all means. Cause I think that's so good for people to understand about there's a certain day and a time, an appointed time for you to do certain things that need to be done, whether it's doing the parasite cleanses or when you're doing something with your animals, just surgeries, all of that. There's certain times that you should be doing those things. And so Steve has a whole thing on that and sells the moon phase. Like you've done like 18 months out in advance on that. He has those on his website. You can buy, I've bought it. I love it. And so I go buy it as well. And so we'll talk about that next week so that people can be informed. W.R. Carr said, yes, my mother's Speed Queen was 31 years old when it finally died. My next one will be a Speed Queen. Fly Girl 61 says, I bought cases of light bulbs when they quit making the old ones and replaced with LEDs. I'm just now on the last few boxes. So they do still sell them. You are able to find them. Fly Girl 61, because I'm with you. I don't have LEDs in my home. I don't even like the bright white lighting like that. And so I'm very sensitive to lighting, always have been. And so, Yeah, I'm with you. And I bought a bunch of them too. RM Coy says, I replaced a Maytag dryer in 2021 that was installed in 1974. I tried to repair it, but couldn't get parts. But you know what? Maytag used to have that reputation, didn't they? Yeah. Wow. Wow. Until 2021, it even lived through COVID. You know, Maytag, didn't they used to the commercials or something? I mean, that dryer was like made a year after I was born. That is wild. I had a lady the other day go, I just want to say, you just don't look like a granny. And turned out she was talking about Godly Granny, my company. And I looked at her at first. I was like, why would she think I look like a granny? And then I go, oh, just because the company's named Godly Granny doesn't mean I'm a granny.
Not yet. Not yet anyway, right?
Yeah. I got a son getting married though, so we shall see how that works. Okay, so we've got two faith-based things we want to show you real quick. Have you seen Coca-Cola's machine where you can personalize your Coca-Cola product? Well, there's a little hiccup that's been found just when you think people just can't get any more brazen. Here we go. Let's take a look.
So at this Coke store, you can personalize a message. You can put Allah loves you. Or you could even put, let me see, let's just try it out. Buddha loves you. But you cannot even type in the word Jesus. We cannot allow this text on the can. Everything else is good though. Even if I put, let's see, Satan.
Oh no, bro.
Hold on. Satan loves you. You could put that. You could put Satan loves you, Allah loves you, Buddha loves you. But when you type in this word, you can't even type the word in. That's crazy. That's ridiculous.
Tells you all you need to know about the name.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because when you say God, people don't know what you're talking about. When you say the name of Jesus, they usually know. And so it's just crazy though. It tells you everything you need to know about Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Tells you about them. Oh, yeah. All right. So let's take a look. This is so good. I have a story and then Steve has a story too, which I'm just laughing because I'm thinking about you, what you told me. All right. I'll explain later. All right. So to the audience, we're going to explain it to you. You're not left out, but I'm going to explain it later after we see this video. Let's see. So there is an unseen enemy. We know about the scriptures. We know what it says. And so who do we battle? Let's listen to this gentleman, though. Amazing story about the school shooting here in Nashville, Tennessee. Let's take a look.
You need to watch this video.
Many of you have heard about the school shooting that happened in Nashville, Tennessee a short time back. And there were two things that happened that has not been in the news. One is when the shooter drove up to the property and got out of the parking lot, the shooter was right beside the playground. There were 50 kids on the playground. They could have opened up with that automatic weapon and killed 50 kids and not even had to break in a door. But apparently they didn't see the kids. Later that day, some of those kindergartners went home to their parents and said, Mommy, Daddy, there was a golden dome over the playground today, and we saw angels. God hid them from view with a golden dome that the shooter couldn't see through, apparently. And angels were there to make sure the kids were okay. Then, in the classroom where the shooter was taken down, the officers that broke the door down and took down the shooter said when they saw her, there was a black cloud floating above her head. They took her down, and immediately the black cloud dissipated. Folks, there is an unseen world. And Christians who say this is all only happened in Bible times or only happened in Africa, doesn't happen here today in an enlightened society. That's exactly what Satan wants us to believe. We need to wake up and open our eyes and reread Ephesians 6. Our real enemies are not flesh and blood. The girl doing the shooting wasn't the enemy. It was the unseen being influencing her. Keep praying, because prayer works. God loves you, and I love you. Have a good day.
The angels of God are out there, my friends. The Bible says we can even entertain angels unaware. If you want to hear more about super...
Yeah, that's so good. So when I saw that, it reminded me of a story that I read when I was reading a book by John Ramirez. You know, he says he's been baptized twice. He was baptized in the Satanic Church when he was like 6 years old or 8 years old, I think it is, and 7 or 8, somewhere around there. And then, of course, he ended up giving his life to the Lord, and he has been baptized in the Holy Spirit now. And I always like listening to former warlocks and former witches that are now just on fire for the Lord, because they end up telling some things that you just really learn a depth when it comes to things of the Spirit. You know, the thing about it, like I was saying to you, Steve, and I've been saying here on the show for years now, is that I believe, and I have witnessed it, that there is an intentional, systematic dumbing down of the body of Christ. And so if you go to a church, what happens is we hear all about how we're supposed to be tithing our 10%. But the people that are witches and warlocks, they are dealing in the things of the Spirit. That's their focus. And so they understand the things of the Spirit. In his book, he tells a story in there about a church having an event there on the property at the church. It was on the outside. I don't know what the event was called, but I just remember it was outside the building. And he said some witches and warlocks, and he had shown up, you know, across the street in the area, and they were trying to do some witchcraft against those that attended this event at the church. And which is very eye-opening that these people, are trying to do this to a church and the congregation. And he said, no matter what we tried, he said, we could not penetrate a dome that had been like over the whole property. It wasn't just the building. I remember him saying specifically that it was over the entire property, and that they had been so prayed up, the congregation had been, that the witches and the warlocks couldn't even penetrate the dome of protection that had been put around the property, the entire property of the church. Isn't that amazing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Michelle, I told you, we talk about this, and I know I don't just have a speed queen, but I have stories about things in the mission field as well. And the reason is I spent 7 years on my deathbed, but I spent 11 years in the street and jail and prison ministry. And I also worked with people that were satanically ritually abused, just like you guy you're talking about. And I met a gal that was from Africa, and there was 2 tribes. One tribe she was ministering to, and the other tribe would come in and steal the women and children and vegetables or whatever they had. And the bad tribe would hold their hands out and do a chant, and some of the men would get sick and die in the tribe. Mm-hmm. And she said, what is happening? And she said, well, there's fiery darts coming out. And if you read your book of Ephesians, you'll know that that's in there talking about fiery darts. Take up the shield of faith. and those things like that. And that's what she did. She stood up against the tribe, come in one day, and they held their hands out to her. And the people said they saw a shield on her, upon her, and the fiery darts. And those people started following Christ and changed their life. And because let's face it, and let me just say this. I'm going to say this because I think this is important. All right. I did get a haircut, but I'll come.
Thank goodness.
It's out of the wild, Michelle. But listen, folks, I want to tell you what the fiery darts are like. I want to share with you what they are, okay? Because this is important. You go to someone's house or you go to somebody, and these thoughts that enter your mind that are so wild. I knew a lady at one time that she would have thoughts about pick up a knife and stab your child in her high chair. And the thing is, these thoughts are coming in your mind that are so wild and so crazy. I'm going to encourage you to just, in those times when those thoughts, those are the fiery darts. They can tell you to do weird stuff. They can tell you that a person likes you more than they do. You should run around on your husband, or, it's just, usually it's very detrimental, dangerous, evil thoughts that get you to do things that you normally wouldn't do. I'm going to encourage you, when those fiery darts come in your mind, just say out loud, Lord, I just want to thank you for the day. Just say something positive. Say something outside. Thank the Lord. thank the Lord for something good, and these thoughts will begin to dissipate. But those are the fiery darts, and that's how you take up the shield of faith. The shield of faith is thanking the Lord for giving you the ability to discern good and evil and those things that are not. Because let's face it, there are so many thoughts, especially with Instagram and social media and everything coming into our phones and all this stuff. Listen, having discernment and ask God, please do this. Just ask God for wisdom. He said he'll give you more than you can handle. Do that. That is how the fiery darts are extinguished. And we need those more now than ever, especially with AI showing us stuff in our face that looks real.
So, Steve, is that also a good time to, say the name of Jesus?
Oh,
and
100%.
I would think that would be a great time to start saying the name of Jesus, because the demons can't even, they flee at just the name. Kazadu says, wow, you're not a hippie anymore, Steve.
Wait,
that's funny.
Business in the front. I still got party in the back, though.
Oh, thank goodness. I never doubted you didn't have a party going on. Okay, so the reason why I was laughing earlier is because I had to chuckle because you had said you'd been, I just remembered you telling me the story a few weeks ago about how you'd been in seminary. I had not known this about Steve until a few weeks ago, but he got kicked out of seminary. You want to share the story? I just died laughing going, oh my gosh, you did not. And he's like, yes, I did. So what happened?
Okay, I don't know if your audience is more shocked that I was in seminary or I flunked seminary. I don't know which one, but here's the deal. Listen, I threatened to beat a guy up in spiritual foundation class. I'm sorry, I didn't know. The guy was throwing down, I was raised country, you didn't speak to your elders or people in positions a certain way. And this guy in the back is throwing down on the professor saying it's heresy. And I told him if he didn't shut his mouth, I was going to take him out in the hallway. I didn't know that was wrong, in that setting. I'd been living in the flat top wilderness area. I had camped out for 9 straight months, took a bath in the river, cooked and killed all my food and everything else. And God called me to follow him and do what he wanted. So I went to Criswell Cemetery. I said that right. I didn't say that correctly. Anyway, and then in spiritual foundation class, we had a professor in there, and I didn't know that he was the new dean and the new president of the college. And he was saying you could train up a child any way you want to go, and he still may follow the devil. Well, I stood up and read the Bible verse and rebuked him in front of all the 56 other students. Well, I didn't know. Okay, I didn't know you weren't supposed to punch a Christian student. I was still rough around the edges on turning the other cheek. I thought, that part I still have a little trouble with turning the other cheek stuff. And I was just going to bust this guy in the chops just so he wouldn't talk bad toward. So yes, I did flunk and I didn't pass English, but yes, I have authored 2 books though. So listen, there are 2 free books on my. So not only that, if you're not shocked by now, I am an author of 2 books. I did have a lot of help. The person who did help me rewrite my books looked like they bled on the pages, from sentence splicing. I did learn that word, but all this stuff. So there's a free book on joy. This is the most important part though, folks. Joy is the key. There's a free book on joy on my website, sass-usa.com. Go to the important links at the bottom. It's free there to download, and there's a free book on healing there as well. Yes, I did spend 7 years on my deathbed as well, and I'm still here. I'm 58 years old, and I'm still going.
So the years in the deathbed, for those that don't know, Steve was sprayed from something in the air. And it killed others, and it almost killed Steve, but he lived, such a fighter and an inspiration. Thank you, Steve. You're so entertaining. Never disappoints. All right. Thank you, Steve. Oh my goodness. That's so funny. So next week, we'll plan on talking with him about his moon phase calendar and what that does and what, why it's important and all that kind of good stuff. Also, I wanted to tell you, so Mark Taylor has been doing some renovations and he's not going to be able to be with us for a couple of weeks. He's knee deep in that. So he says that he's going to try to knock those out and hopefully we'll have him back in the next couple of weeks. And so we'll see how far and how he gets into his renovations. And also, so I had two more things I wanted to talk with you about. So the next one is, on Friday where I did the things 9 things that I do differently now that I know the truth. Well, one of the things that I talked about was fluoride, not just in our water, but also in our toothpaste. And so I knew I had this video. I had meant to try to find it. And then producer Ron had it today. And I'm like, that's the video I needed on Friday. Okay, so let's take a look at this about fluoride. Listen to what they say.
Do you know where the fluoride? Do you know where it comes from? The fluoride that's added to the water. It's from the phosphate fertilizer companies. It's hydrofluorosilicic acid.
It's a byproduct.
That's the nice way to put it. Yeah. It's a waste product. It's a waste product that they're not allowed to dispose of because when they were disposing of it, everything around the plants was dying. Yeah. So they had to start figuring out what to do with their waste. So they said, "Oh, perfect. We're gonna bottle it. We're going to show that fluoride's great for your teeth. So we're going to bottle this acidic, nasty form of it, and we're going to sell it back to the counties. So just like everything else, our tax dollars are paying to poison us. And it's just insanity."
It's the biggest level of insanity, and it's very typical of the systems.
I think it's the biggest. It's our water.
Yeah,
we are 70% water.
They'll use science against us, right? And they'll only give you one angle of that science.
Yeah, so I found that very interesting. I want to remind you that Godly Granny, we just released clean tooth powder. So it's detoxifying, it's whitening. Look how white my teeth are, which I already had white teeth, but still, they're great. It's great. And it is remineralizing. So just wanted to make sure that you knew. Of course, it's a new product. So when you go to godlygranny.com at the top left-hand corner, if you click on new, and go to that page, it'll show you all the brand new products, and there's a 5% discount. So the tooth powder is already a fabulous price, if I don't say so myself, or if I do say so myself. And so, and then you get extra 5% off plus whatever coupon code you have. So I wanted to make sure you knew that. Cousin, I saw your comment. It was so funny. It was like, might not be a granny, but you got a lot of grannies buying Godly Granny from you. That's true. We do have a lot of grannies and a lot of granddaddies. And so I think the grannies buy it for the granddaddies, though, for the most part. Okay, I wanted to talk with you about something else, too, though. So obviously, I have been thinking about a lot of things and really pondering, looking back, prayer, also just a number of things, having conversations with people about my thoughts, and just like I said the other night, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to bed. Okay, yeah, there's no way that was the real Donald Trump. There's no way that they would ever have them in any kind of harm. And so, and I think too, there's the whole thing about what I was saying earlier about, I think a lot of people want to blame Donald Trump for things that he probably really doesn't even have any control over. There's a lot of stuff that he doesn't have control over. There's some things that is also, I believe we're seeing some flashes of some things that are maybe in the works that are coming, like with the IRS and all of that. There's a lot of traction that's getting done, and there's just a lot of conversation with people that you've never heard them say anything about the IRS, and now all these different people are having it. And so I wrote something down I wanted to share with you today. And so I was talking this morning in a conversation, and I thought he made a really good point. And so the gentleman I was speaking with was not Steve Jarvis. It was someone else. And he said, we're in a 5th generation warfare. And do you believe in a 5th generation warfare that there would be psyops? And I said, absolutely. And he said, but would there be psyops on both sides? Yes. And you have to realize too, I personally do not believe that this war is won. I think that we're dealing with a lot of money, like unbelievable money, and people who have infiltrated all areas throughout the world, not just the country. And so, I don't know if the U.S. military and Donald Trump has it all saved and everything's great, or if there's something still afoot. I personally believe there's plenty that is still afoot. I think we've got to continue, as I've been saying week after week with Mark Taylor, that we got to be praying for our president and the people that are helping. And so to win. I mean, at the end of the day, I sure hope there's a war, because if there's not, that means where we're headed is not good. Now, this was something that, has been discussed in the last week or so, that I have said is, we have to remember that, not everything is as it seems. Let me ask you this too. This is a good point. It's like, so are you aware that movie actors have body doubles? And a lot of times it's for stunts in movies. It might even be for an event where they want to go do something else or whatever, and they hire the body double to go and attend for them. Are you aware of that? And so it could be for their safety. It could be just because for convenience. It could be because they're doing something else and they wanted to also have an appearance there. And, so it can be many reasons. And so if a movie actor or actress would have that, don't you think that politicians would also potentially have that, but especially the president of the United States and other world leaders, don't you think that would be reasonable to think that there would be body doubles? I don't know if they're really cloning Donald Trump, but a body double, a lookalike, somebody that, looks like him, that poses as him and attends in his place. And so do you believe that that's possible? Do you think that that's probable? And so that's why I said, there's no way that that's the real Donald Trump. The Donald Trump Saturday night looks very different than the Donald Trump that we saw just a little while ago. The Donald Trump we saw just a little while ago at the White House leaving, at best, that's got to be probably if that's not him, it's the closest I've seen to him. Wearing the bright red tie. We know that we've heard that the real one wears a red tie. I don't know. But he talked like that. That's why you're second rate and all this stuff he said to her. And so we know the Donald Trump that we elected as the president. We know him. We know how he is. We know he's a street fighter and he'll call it all out and put you in your place and say fake news, fake news. And so I just want to, I think what we have to do is, I think we're at a point where, first of all, we either trust him or we don't. I mean, I don't think you can kind of ride the fence, right? It's kind of like you're not kind of a Christian because, the enemy owns the fence. And so you either are or you're not. And so with Donald Trump, I think you either trust that there's a plan in action and that they're trying their best and they're working that plan and plan B and part A and whatever else is going on. I think there's also some other things where we have to be a little bit deeper thinker. I think a lot of people get so wrapped up in a lot of this that's going on, these psyops, and they get so tore up. That's why I had said when it came to Charlie Kirk that I wasn't going to spend a lot of time on that, because just personally, I saw it as a waste of a lot of time, that I would see some things here and there. And as I saw fit, that I would cover it here on the show. And I have a little bit here and there, and, different things that come out, I'll hear about it. But am I spending days and days on it and getting all wrapped up in that and talking about it here? No, not going to do that. And I told you up front I wasn't going to do that, because it's so much to it that who only knows what the truth is. And so it's so insane. And so there was so much symbolism from the beginning, and there's going to be twists and turns, and it's a big fat waste of time. How does it put food on your table? How does it encourage you? How does it bring you closer to the Lord? It doesn't. It doesn't. And so I just, I wrote a couple of things down, and I think there's something else. So we know there's TDS, right? Trump derangement syndrome. But I have another TDS that I think is going on. I just was never able to really articulate it like I'm getting ready to. And I call it Trump diffusion syndrome. And so Trump diffusion syndrome is where you think that Trump's just going to handle it all and you're just not going to do anything. We're just going to sit here. We're going to sit back. We're going to watch old reruns of Oprah, and we're going to eat bonbons, and we're just not going to have anything we're going to do. And there's going to be no accountability toward us. And so we're just going to sit back, enjoy the show, eat the popcorn, all that kind of stuff. Right. And we can't do that. Like, we have to do our part. One of the things we have to do is we have to get into the Word of God. And the other thing we have to do is read the Constitution. It's just like what I asked Steve today when I brought up, well, the Constitution, like constitutionally, even the CIA shouldn't even be operating in the United States. Like, Did you know that? And so it's the same thing with a lot of these different entities, these 3-letter agencies that are operating here in the United States. And so, well, why is this going on with agriculture? I mean, think about it too. So Obama left the White House, and when he left the White House, he pardoned everybody. So don't you have to let some people commit some crimes so that you can arrest them and root out communism? I mean, straight up communism. And so that is going on in this country. I think there are some people that are communists in our country that would probably be shocked if we knew who all they were. And so they're working against, I think there are people in history that were put to death and they were put to death and, executed for treason to our country. And so I wrote a list about, read the Constitution, know our rights. Our rights aren't given to us by the Constitution. They're given to us by God, but they're put in writing by, our forefathers. And of course, read the Word of God first and foremost and have a relationship with Him. If something is, I'll have people who will say to me, Michelle, I just don't know how you do it. I get this all the time. And I'm like, do what? Well, how do you do the show? And how do you talk about all this and know about all this and not be so overwhelmed? I'm like, well, first of all, I keep my eyes on God. Like, I don't have to have it all figured out. Like, I sleep really good at night. I think Erica Kirk is good. Well, I have my own opinions about what it looks like. And but also we say, well, why is everybody, seeming to be bad in Trump's administration? It makes him look bad. And like he's in on it too. Well, I mean, I'd never even heard of Mike Pence before he chose Mike Pence as the vice president. So I think I have some examples even of where President Trump has avoided saying other people's names that he didn't want to put in the light that were good. And so did he put Mike Pence in that position so that Mike Pence could do the things that he would do in order for them to get him? And I don't believe we see the real Mike Pence anymore. And so we know some of the things that Lynn Wood exposed even with his whistleblower, right? Do we need to play those videos again maybe sometime soon to remind everybody about all that? Maybe we could do that soon. I don't know if we've even done that before here on the show, so we may do that. But you see what I'm saying? Like, I think sometimes it's easy for us to forget, just like when President Trump said, we're going to quit telling everybody what we're going to do. Like, we're going to move forward and we're not going to, put on a loudspeaker what our plans are in our battle of war. And so like where, who is it that he's fighting, And so I just think that, and look, I mean, I think a lot of the stuff that's going on right now with these stories, how do we know they're true? A lot of it we don't necessarily know. And so, but I tell people, I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, I'm not heavy hearted. And if I am, I take a step back, I get a little bit of rest and I go, okay, God, help me here, because God gives me the grace, like it's His grace. And so for me, I just don't lose sleep over a lot of this stuff. And a lot of it, I just have the discernment to know, just like I said on Saturday, I was like, this is another psyop. Like, I'm moving on. I got life to live. I'm not going to take part in all this. And, I hope it wakes some people up, maybe some neighbors, some friends, some family members that are completely like, I'm going to get my next booster. And so maybe this might help. You never know what's going to wake someone up. And so, who knows? And so I'm just not going to let life fly past me. I don't think that God has, even in the position of what God's got me doing, I don't think that it's 24/7. I'm not on social media 24/7. It's probably pretty shocking how little I'm on these platforms and stuff, because I just don't think that I'm here to focus on all of that 24/7. And if I'm not, I know you're not either. Okay. Because look, I could be knee deep in all of that all the time. But what is something that I have said to you over and over and over and over and over and over again? And that is keep first things first. What does that mean? Well, keep first things first means keep your relationship on Him, number one, because He is number one. If everything in your world is right, then He's number one. Sorry, but that's just a fact. And so if he's not number one, well, then you got to get first things first. And then you got to stay there. I think I had lunch with a friend on Saturday, and she asked me about something, and I don't remember what it was. She asked me about a number of things, and we were talking about all different kinds of stuff. And she said, she asked me something, and I said, I don't know. And I said, but, I really don't care either. And it was something very, whatever. And because I don't have to know the answers to everything. And I said, and I'm perfectly good with that. Like, I ask God to reveal to me what I need to know on some things. Like, if I need to know something, let me know. And he'll reveal things to me that, okay, that's interesting. Or, I'll ask God about something, and, or there's times I don't even ask, and I just think, well, he'll show me if I need to know it. It might not really even be important, or it may not be for me to report on here on the show or whatever, And so I just trust him in the details. But I said to her, I also think, and this is where we got to be thinking, I also think there is an air of like gossip. Like, there's like, well, did you hear this? Did you hear that? What about this? What about? And it's like, are you putting as much energy into your relationship with him as you are into knowing what's going on today on X or on whatever social media thing? And so I just, I really want to, and people go, well, I get called all different kinds of things and accused of all different kinds of stuff. And so, but I'm not called to like everybody else is calling. Like, I'm not just, I don't see I see myself differently. I see myself as more of a lifestyle show in a lot of ways. Yes, we talk about President Trump. Yes, we talk about today's happenings here and there. But then we'll have a show where we don't talk about anything like that. And so we'll have a couple of shows like that all the time. And so, but then like Friday's show was a complete download. Like I just knew that I was supposed to talk about things that I do differently now that I know the truth, that I know better. And so I want to just say to you, like, make sure that life isn't passing you by, that you're not getting out in the sun and going and doing whatever it is that you enjoy doing, and that you're so caught up. Because I talk to people that are really overwhelmed, and I talk to many viewers, many people that are so distraught over the children and over what's going on with our banking system, and is Trump good? Is Trump bad? And the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, you still have to pay to put gas in your car. The fact of the matter is, if you get sick, that's why we do godly granting, is to try to make sure to get you healthy and keep you healthy. God said he was going to use me to help bring healing to his people, to his children. And so it's like, that's you, so that you can fulfill the plans and the purposes for your life for which you were created by him to do. And so is it always to be wringing your hands and to be worrying and wondering about, this thing or that thing or the latest gossip, or getting freaked out anytime the latest psyop happens? I saw so many people crying over Charlie Kirk. I don't know if he was assassinated and he was a good guy or a bad guy. He could be, I don't know what Valhalla really is. There's different takes on that even. So is he sitting on some island somewhere? Is he, I don't know, is he in Israel with Jeffrey Epstein? I don't know, but I'm not losing sleep over it. I can tell you that right now. And so I know that something doesn't add up, but I also pray and say, God, if I'm supposed to know something, and let me tell you something, boy, have I got a story for that. And so I had that where I was at a church, and I think I might have told this story once before, where we had been going to this church for like 15 years. And all of a sudden, the Holy Spirit told me to quit giving my tithe to the church. And I was like, okay. I never asked God why. I just stopped doing it. And then the Holy Spirit would like show me different things to do with the money. It was wild, y'all. It was wild. And so one of them was to give to this, best friend of mine since we were 10. And she, unbeknownst to me, was unexpectedly going to have to travel to get her passport, visa, whatever, to be able to live and go to Canada for a while. And this had been held up and held up and held up. And come to find out, she needed to go to Canada to take some course. And so what the Holy Spirit had told me to give her, instead of giving it to the church, was almost to the penny of what she needed for the flight. And she had just been praying that day, unbeknownst to me, that, how in the world is this going to happen? And so then there was another time that he told me to give her money, and come to find out, in Canada where she's at the time, the snow and everything, you have to have special snow tires. You have to put all this stuff on your car. And she didn't know, and she wasn't prepared to pay for that. She was there doing ministry. And so she didn't know. And the Holy Spirit had told me to give her the money. I didn't know what the need was. I called her and told her, and she was like, "You're not going to believe this. This is so crazy." And so I was like, that's our God. That's just so amazing. But I never asked God, like, why? Why wouldn't I give it to the church? And then one night, I'm sitting in the bathtub, and the Holy Spirit revealed to me, like, some stuff about that whole situation. It's a year later. And was like, you don't know why you're not to give the church a tithe. And I'm going to reveal it to you. And little did I know, while I'm sitting in the bathtub, I hear my phone text. I've received a text, and it's in the other room. So, when I get out of the tub and dry off and everything, get my jammies on, I go in there and I finally look at my phone, and it is somebody who had been a pastor with the church, who had sent a group of women who were speaking at a Christian women's event the next day, all this stuff about, please pray for me. This is what's going on at my church. And all this stuff that unraveled. Well, she forgot that I was in the group. I was speaking the next day too. And so everything had been revealed in one text message that I did not know. See what I'm saying? And so I never had to ask a single person. Didn't even ask God. Just knew. I just had that. If I'm supposed to know, He'll show me. Why is everybody quitting and all the leadership quitting and dropping like flies? I don't know. And I'd have conversations. I had, conversations and relationships with all these people. And I never asked them, hey, like, what's going on? I never said a word. Could have, but didn't. And that's what I'm saying. It's the same thing here. Like, we don't have to know every little thing, but what we need to do is make sure that we are keeping first things first. And that's what I'm worried about for some people, is that maybe they're getting a little bit distracted because in all of this. And I just want to make sure, like, to kind of, be like, hey, gentle nudge, make sure you keep first things first, and keep in mind what the call is on your life. And so you're awake for a reason. So what is that reason? And are you doing what you feel led to do, what that nudge is going toward, if that makes sense? Kazadu 77 says, it's nice to put that phone down sometimes and just don't look at it for a while. Exactly. We're not called to have, the phone in our hands all the time. And I had a friend who really made an impact on me. She was really great at it. She was really great at, like, you could text her. I might text her and not hear from her until like 9:00 that night. And I might text her at 1:00 in the afternoon. I think a lot of times we feel like we live in such a right now world, and people feel like they got to know every little thing, and, and you've got to respond right away. And I have really started to take a step back. I mean, obviously, I've got 55,000 unread emails. So at some point I have to just be okay with it. And I am. I've become okay with the fact that I'm never going to read all those emails. I'm going to do the best I can with the time that I have, but I can't just wake up and until the time I go to bed, be reading emails and responding to emails. I just can't do that. And so there's a lot of stuff that, just doesn't need my response anyways. And so, I've made some changes, and I have become okay with that. And so Avery R says, my church has potluck every week, so I gave money to them for kitchen supplies. Is that okay? That's for you to pray about and think about. And so if you're at peace with that, then be at peace with that. Red Clay Lane says, social media is the new COVID lockdown. That's a good way to look at it. People can spend hours alone listening to gossip and garbage. You can't even tell what is AI. I'm starting to really have a hard time telling. At first I could tell. I was like, oh yeah, that you realize that's AI, right? And they'd be like, no. And yeah, that's AI. It's easy to get sucked in. Good exists all around us if we look for it. I really spend my time focusing on how to help other people. And then, like I said, like Friday's show was a total topic that the Holy Spirit had really been putting on my heart for a couple of days. And it was a great idea, to just kind of go back. It was the time of the year too that I like to talk about sunglasses. I mean, I look at these sunglasses and sunscreen. I look at some of these people, by the way, let me just tell you, I look at some of these influencers on Facebook and Instagram, and it just makes me sick. They have no idea what they're pushing at all. They put those sunglasses on and tell you they're $12.99 or whatever. And here's my link to my Amazon and all that. And they're just slathering on, sunscreen and pushing the latest shots for this or that. And it's like, I have never seen so many people so uninformed in my life. It is sickening. It just really is. And so we got to be careful. Got to be careful who you listen to. Avery R says, love the Godly Granny lip gloss. Me too. I do too. Don't you just love the bag? And so we're going to have Godly Granny logo bags, and they came in unexpectedly on Saturday. And somehow they're the wrong size. I don't know what happened. I got to call and see about that. But anyways, aren't these gorgeous? They're just gorgeous. I love them. I love the gloss and the oil. Fly Girl said, I would much rather have a landline. I don't stay in my phone much at all. I may not see a text message for days or longer. I've started doing that with Messenger. Producer Ron will be like, have you seen the video I sent you yesterday? And I'm like, no. I used to check Messenger 2 or 3 times a day. I'm not even sure. I don't know what's going on with True Social. It's like it won't populate or something right. And then Instagram. So I don't know what's going on with Instagram too. I try to stay up on that one, and they got all these mailboxes. It's just so much, and everybody, has a video they want me to see, and it's just impossible. But anyways, Avery R says that lip gloss bag is so cute. It is, isn't it? And it's, what's so perfect about it is it's so girly, and lip gloss and lip oil is a girly thing. No guy of mine that's watching the Michelle Moore show, they're not using lip gloss or lip oil. I can assure you of that. That's a different show. But anyways, yeah, I'm just cracking myself up. But anyways, and so I just want to encourage you, to just, like I said, keep first things first. God has you here for a reason. And I'm going to tell you, so I wrote down, about reading your Bible, read the Constitution, keep first things first. Get to know your neighbors, and garden some, or just in some way becoming self-sufficient. Get a radio so that if there ever is an EBS, that you'll be able to receive that message. Make sure you have water. Make sure you have food. And so, just be prepared and do your part. And so, and pray, and, ask Yahweh, say, what is it? Use me. I have that great story about my friend Michelle. She misspells her name. It's with what L. And so we always joke that she misspells her name. And, she tells this amazing story about how she's like, use me, God, use me. And she said, one night she's driving and she's going over, and it's been raining, and this motorcyclist passes by her, and she was on a street that was like a hilly. And so it went up a hill, down a hill, up a hill. And when she came back over that hill, somebody had T-boned that motorcyclist. And so she pulls up, she gets out of the car, she runs over to him, and she's just precious anyways. Y'all would love her. And so she's like, she's holding him, and she knows that she's supposed to pray for him. So she starts praying for him, and he died in her arms. And she goes, Michelle, do I know why I was supposed to pray for him? No, I don't. I just know I was supposed to pray for him. Did it make a difference of where he spent eternity? I don't know. If you think about it, well, the man on the cross next to Jesus got to go to heaven. Like, we don't know. We don't know. But she talks about that. And she was like, that morning I'd been praying, and I was asking God, use me, please use me. Just use me, God. She goes, I sure didn't mean that, but I was willing. And so it's like, that was so good, so good, so good. And so, I want to encourage you, like, you're awake for a reason. So what is God wanting to do with that? Is he wanting to use you for a neighbor, a coworker, a friend, a family member? Like, we don't really know, right? Until God shows you. And then you just got to be like, God, use me, I'm willing. Do you think, I'm going to tell you something. When God started really showing me about what became the Michelle Moore Show, I got to tell you a funny story. I was like, yeah, So here's the deal. So God, I'm going to need to see, 3 camels in my family room. And so I was not excited at all. And so I had done a radio show for 3.5 years on Music Row in Nashville. And for The Power of Real Estate is what it was called, The Power of Real Estate. And so producer Ron had always thought that I should have called it the Michelle Moore Show. So that's how this came about as the Michelle Moore Show, was to make producer Ron happy. So anyways, but I was not happy. I knew how much work it was. And then to put video to it too, like I wore suits and all of that, and the jewelry and the shoes and all that in sales for so many years that I'm just so over it. And so I didn't really want to worry about what I look like. And so that was a big, like, I miss radio, God. And so, but I didn't say I wanted to do video. And so, but I had a TV deal with Christian television, which at the time I'm like, well, surely you'd want me to do that. And little did I know, I would never have been able to do that. Never. Because I know too much now. And so anyway, so I'm like, I'm going to need to see some camels because I'm just not real fired up about this. And so, but do you think I saw that I'd be doing this? No. When I talked to Lynn Wood last week, Lynn said something though, and I was just like, this man is really hitting the marks. He says, when you look at your life and you look back, he said, do you see that really it's all been in preparation for where you are now? Oh, I've been telling producer Ron that for like almost from immediately doing the Michelle Moore Show. Like, oh my goodness, you know what? I wouldn't know how to do all this if I hadn't done the radio show, or this or that. And it was just so crazy to me. And I was literally seeing it. And I was seeing Ron going through that as well. He had worked with me when I was doing the radio show in a different capacity, but he was still working with me. And I was like, Ron, I'm seeing this with you too, and so it was amazing. And it was just, it's amazing because our steps are ordered of the Lord. And so, I think that, like when I had heard the Holy Spirit just really in my mind's eye, I heard one day, like, do you not see how I could use your sales skill for my glory, for my kingdom? And when I heard sales skills, I knew immediately that he meant like communication skills. And I was like, well, I had never thought about it, God, but yes, of course, you could use anything. And so that's where it started. And, and my whole thing was, well, I mean, isn't this a little late? I mean, I'm thinking everything's going to be done any minute now. People, say, I was listening to something today. They're like, well, we got to have something by July the 4th. I mean, July the 15th at the latest, because, we got the midterms. Yeah, well, we thought a lot of that right before Biden got inaugurated. So people can set deadlines and have all these expectations and these lines in the sand all they want, but doesn't make it true, I thought, boy, they're saying all these dates and stuff. And I'm like, good luck with that. And so, but just, what's the bigger picture? Some of you are so educated on so much of the history and everything, but how does God want to use that? And that's what you got to really be. And don't think, well, I'll get to it tomorrow, if you know what God's doing, because, if he's calling you to do it now, then do it now. Don't put it off. But I just wanted to encourage you about that and not have Trump diffusion syndrome, where you sit back and think, well, President Trump's going to take care of it all. I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to eat these bonbons and I'm going to watch reruns of Oprah, which I know none of y'all would do that. You just watch a documentary. But anyways, and so I just want to encourage you, read the word, pray, spend time with him, ask him how he wants to use you. You're here for a reason, a big reason, probably a whole bunch of big reasons. And I bet a lot of what they are. And so, and many of you are probably thinking of some things he's calling you to do and been calling you to do that you hadn't done. And so I just want to encourage you, make sure that you're taking time to keep first things first. All right. I'll see you here tomorrow. right here next time on The Michelle Moore Show.
There aren't a lot of reasons to use Godly Granny products. There's every reason, because every time you twist or flip a cap on something from Godly Granny, you're voting no to chemicals and yes to common sense, but without all the electronic voting machines. With Godly Granny, there's no toxins, no chemicals, no endocrine disruptors, no cancer-chasing filler. Godly Granny is a small batch, made-to-order, deeply naturopathic wellness brand. Founded on biblical truth, formulated with pure purpose, and handcrafted by saved folks who know that freedom doesn't come from fake lavender and phthalates. Visit godlygranny.com and sign up for our emails to receive a special discount code for 10% off your first order.
My wife and I have always had a preparedness mindset, but having an actual antibiotic or a prescription medication, that was a void we'd never been able to fill. I was amazed that you could get the Jace case and order it and have it shipped to you. And the fact that it included so many different medications, I take that Jace case with me wherever I go. It's something that provides me comfort and peace in knowing that I have that with me in case of an emergency.
Go to jace.com. Be sure to use the discount code Michelle10 at checkout to receive special savings on your purchase.
Hi friends, it's Michelle Moore. And when it comes to protecting your retirement, I believe in taking smart, steady steps. Bank of America analysts call gold the ultimate safe haven. And when it comes to precious metals, I trust Universal Coin and Bullion, the official rare coin and bullion dealer of my show. They have been named the best in their industry both nationally and regionally by leading organizations. Consider a gold IRA, a time-tested way to diversify your portfolio with real tangible assets, which lets you move a portion of your retirement savings into physical gold, helping protect your wealth from inflation, market swings, and economic uncertainty. And Universal Coin and Bullion makes the process easy. From rollovers to delivery, they walk you through every step, even if you have one with another gold company. Protect what you've worked so hard to build from the team that I trust, Universal Coin and Bullion, at 800-321-8700, and make sure to tell them Michelle sent you.
Hi, I'm Linda Bamber Olson, the inventor of the Wave Watch, the world's first frequency therapy watch. It features over 1,100 targeted frequencies combined into 150 playlists for ease of use. These sounds are acoustical and they move through your body, through your skin and your bones. You don't necessarily have to hear it. As each frequency goes through, it can be realigning, revitalizing, reconnecting, and even rebalancing your body all the way to the cellular level. So that's why we have so many testimonies for aches, ADD and ADHD, allergies, colds and flu, dental, emotions, headaches, joints, kidney stones, nerves, organs, skin health, swelling, tremors, vagus nerve, and so many more. Use this code for $100 off when you purchase the Wave Watch. Thanks for learning about frequencies, using them, and supporting the Wave Watch.
For Michelle's social media links, go to MichelleMooreShow.com.